Hello everybody and welcome to week number 20 review here with on my channel. I don't know what week it is, I keep forgetting to check and I really don't care. But first things first, I want to look at the poses as I always do. As usual, I have nothing to talk about, but at least planned, but just looking at this, these are very fuzzy. Why is that? Oh, these are the 90 seconds, I think. I think when I wake up earlier, I do well. I just realized, like earlier today. I think this day I didn't wake up earlier. I can't really remember, but some of these are really out of control fuzzy, eh? Weird. The only thing that I really have to say about the figures this week is, like I feel like I'm pretty confident in everything except foreshortening. So like stuff like this one's not too bad. I think this was the pose of the day though, so I had more time to work on that. But like sometimes, stuff like this, like really high angle or like low angle stuff, or when there's a hand coming right toward the camera, that stuff always gets me. Or like legs, you know, things that are long. Foreshortening is, it's always pretty difficult. So I think in terms of like things I really need to practice with figures, there's not a whole lot left. I'm going to work on hands in specific next week. There is some things I could do better, like visualizing these like 3D shapes for like my construction a little better, like this trapezoid. I could still practice that a little more, but I think it's basically just hands, and then there's some things about the legs I don't understand. How the legs emerge, like when you're looking from below like this. I kind of struggle with that too. And then just in general, the back. The figure from behind is kind of difficult for me. I think from in front, I'm more confident, but from behind is kind of difficult. And stuff like this, you know, really high and really low angle stuff as well. Foreshortening, you know, some little things like that. So I'm going to try and work on those a little bit as time goes on. Like I said, next week I'm going to be working on hands in particular, but I'm pretty happy with a lot of this stuff. I like this one. Okay? A lot of this is really good. I don't really have a high bar to set for myself, but as long as it looks okay, you know, because the idea is I would be able to like draw this in and then kind of use this as like a base to put a character in there or something in that pose. And at that level of detail, I'm pretty fine with that. This is kind of all I really need with figures, you know, just to be able to look at a pose from reference and then kind of build it, you know, build it from reference. That's really all I'm kind of looking to get good at. And I think I can do that, so it's kind of hard for me to do it when I'm looking at a clothed figure though. I really need them to be like naked, or like one of these 3D models that I use. It's hard for me to visualize through clothing. So that's another thing I noticed this week, or I guess recently. But stuff like this, like I think this hand is kind of coming toward the camera. This was obviously a 90-second pose, so it's hard for me to get it all done, but this sort of thing, like imagine this arm coming toward the camera and the hand being right here, that's super hard for me to do. That kind of foreshortening, so that's like the only other major thing that I think I want to work on with figures. Everything else is just kind of minor, like a little bit more info on how the legs emerge from the pelvis below, because they seem like they're at kind of like an angle, almost like a slice, you know, sort of thing. So I can look at that. I can look at the hand a little more, maybe the feet themselves, and like elbows, maybe, you know, armpits. There's like a few little minor things that I'm kind of okay with. For the most part, it's just the big stuff like foreshortening, which is, it's a huge topic in its own, right? So that's about it. And then the last here is today's. This is today's figures. Like I said, I've been awake for a while, so I feel like, I mean, it looks the same. Let's be honest, they all look the same. But I feel like when I'm awake for longer, like some days I'll wake up half an hour before I start streaming, you know, and I feel like I don't do as good on those days. I've been awake for a while today, though. And so I feel like I'm more attentive in those situations. So anyway, that's my figures. These two here are technically the previous week, but I've just included them for continuity's sake because I was working on this fan art for more than just 1 week. So I did this and this last week, and then I went into starting here is the previous week. I don't know why I'm explaining this in such a weird way, but this is some fan art I did for one of the new Hololive girls. And so I've sort of figured out the process that I like doing with like bigger pieces like this. I like having, basically breaking it into parts where I'll do like the rough sketch. And this maybe went a little beyond what I usually do in the rough. I guess not, maybe. But then I did another day to like adjust it a little bit. So it's kind of like if you combine these 2 days into one part. This is kind of like the rough part. And then I like doing a bit of like line art. Although I really suck at line art. I kind of want to approach it in a different way, I'm thinking. Maybe use a different brush with less, what do you call it? Like pressure changing? Maybe have a more constant lineage honk. But this would be part 2, kind of line art and like base color. And then part 3 would be like shadows and like finishing touches. So this day I went in and did the shadows and then added a bunch of effects. I think I overdid it on the effects. I'm just kind of experimenting with them, to be honest. Like if you go from here to here, maybe not overdoing it. I can't really tell. It looks fine, I think. But I've really been having fun experimenting with all these different effects. I don't really know how to use them, but I feel like it's a good way to kind of bring everything together by using like layer effects, like overlay and stuff like that. I'm kind of learning how to better utilize that sort of stuff, like glow and whatever, you know, so it's been fun. I'm having fun lately. But yeah, that was that piece. I don't really have anything else to say about it. It's funny, it feels like I did this a month ago. So, so that's that. And then next one, I also did in kind of 3 days. So this would be like the rough sketch day, but I also added color, which I kind of wish I didn't do. Because I felt like when I went into day 2 of this, I felt like I had lost a bit of motivation. And I think the reason for that is because I added all this color. So this feels to me not complete, but I feel like I did enough when I added color to this and like the shadows, a little bit of shadows. Now it feels like more or less complete, you know? And so when I went into day 2, I changed the composition. I added a bit more background to each side. If you notice here, I zoomed out a bit. But I didn't really do a whole lot this day because I felt like, I don't know, I didn't have a lot of motivation this day because I feel like it was already sort of done. You know, I didn't know what else to do. I just kind of cleaned up the line art, cleaned up everything really. Just a bit of tidying up, changed some of the colors around, maybe added a bit more detail to like the water and stuff. But I think if I do too much on like day 1, or like, you know, if I do too much heading into the next day, because I'd like to leave something for me to do, you know? If I don't have something to do right away, then I'll be like, okay, why don't I just start something new, you know? So then this is day 3. I just kind of basically took what I had and touched it up once more, sort of thing. So this is the final version. This is my submission for this week's prompt. Or last week's prompt, I guess, eh? I do like how it turned out, but again, it's I learned a lot about my process here, and that it really is important to not do too much, almost, to like leave myself stuff to do, leave myself homework for the next day. Because if I do too much on one day, my cat's snoring really loud, then it kind of removes a lot of my motivation. So day 2, I really didn't do anything on this one. I did like hardly anything, because so much of it was already done on day 1. So I was like, okay, well, because I usually like I said, I separated it into 3 parts, like rough sketch, kind of like line art and color, base color stuff, and then final touches. But I had already done so much of that part 2 stuff in part 1. So I was like, okay, what do I do then, you know? I don't know. Either way, I had fun with it. Day 3, it came back, you know, I enjoyed it. It came back to having fun. I added some texture as well. It might be hard to see, but and like this shine thing was really fun. It was really fun doing this water stuff too, you know. But yeah, I think it's important to know your it's almost like another part of it to know what, like how you work best as well. Like that's just as important. This hand looks really weird the more I look at it, eh? Oops. his hand. But like knowing how best to keep yourself motivated and keep yourself working properly is almost just as important as doing the actual work itself, right? So I learned that from this one. Anyway, that's that. I'll be back with week 20, I think it's 20 something, right? Next week. So yeah, thanks for watching everybody, and I'll catch you next week, hey? Goodbye. Cut.